This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
All right, welcome in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 7 a.m., Tuesday, August 5th. Glad you're with us. Busy day today. Paul Finebaum coming up in a few minutes. Rhett Lashlee, SMU head coach, also in 30 minutes. Gerard Hamilton will talk Missouri in our 8 o'clock hour. As we have stated, we will kind of go around the SEC, keep you updated what's happening around the league through fall camps in the 8 o'clock hour now leading up until kickoff. GMAC, we heard comments yesterday from Kalen DeBoer on some of the more simple things that quarterbacks are doing in practice, becoming more consistent, having better understanding of when to get the ball out, hitting receivers on time. Is that about what you expect to hear from Kalen DeBoer now, and what else do you feel like you may need to hear?
Well, I think it's progress. I mean, I think being where you're at day one is not necessarily always an indicator of where you're going to be at day 5. And I think that if you're growing and getting better and showing progress, then that's encouraging to most coaches. So I also don't think it's at all surprising that a guy that, hasn't really played a lot in Keelan Russell, or a guy that hasn't played a lot in Austin Mack, and a guy that's played very little over the last 3 years in Ty Simpson, that they're going to maybe be a little bit tight early in practice and then start to loosen up as the practices roll along. So I think it's a lot of positivity to take from that.
Is there anything you feel like you need to be hearing about the offensive line, specifically right tackle, as far as naming a starter or knowing who's getting more reps? Is there anything that would sort of put your mind at ease there that you feel like you could hear?
No, because I don't think it's at this point necessary to name a starter on the offensive line. I think you want to develop guys so that you have depth at that position regardless of who the starter is. Like, does continuity matter? Sure, yeah. More so to me on the interior. I want to have my guards and center figured out, and I don't want to be rolling a ton there, but I know they're already rolling left guard, so you're going to get a couple weeks of good looks there. But I don't necessarily need to know who the starter is along the offensive line. I need everybody to get a ton of reps and for everybody to be ready at a moment's notice, because the likelihood of you having some guys that are out for a series, a play, a game, 2 games, a month, a season, the likelihood of losing a guy throughout the season is incredibly high along the offensive line. So I want to have as many guys repped and ready to go as possible.
All right, coaches poll.
Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, I don't feel like I need to know right this second. I would like to get my center identified as early as possible, just because of the continuity and chemistry you're probably going to need there. He'll have an understanding. You want him to know who he needs to make calls for, doesn't need to make calls for, which guy needs help in pass protection a little bit more, which guards he needs to know how they're going to stay locked in with him on some double teams, whatnot. Just that extra feel that you're going to need, because he's going to be involved in so much. I would want to know who that is a little bit earlier, but the other ones I don't think as critical, because probably you want depth anyway. So you want multiple guys getting reps, because the chances of all 5 guys going through the season, slim to none. And I want those guys ready to get in the game and maybe be a part of the team, because somebody's going to go down. All right, coaches poll comes out yesterday, and Texas, the number 1 team in the coaches poll going into the season for the first time ever. This is really no big surprise. Greg, we talked about sort of the hype that Texas has right now. I want to know what you did not like first when you went down this coaches poll. What was the first team that you saw and said, yeah, they don't belong there? That's either too high, too low.
There are a lot. I don't know how you I see it very differently than a lot of the coaches, apparently. I don't know how you see it, but yeah, well, whoever's doing the dang poll, this is one of the more egregious polls I think I've ever seen. I mean, seriously. First of all, how is Ohio State 2 with what was lost?
Yeah, we've talked about this story before. It's the national champion just stays. We know how that works.
But if there's ever been an example of national champions not deserving to stay, it should be what's transpired with Michigan last year. Like, you're a totally different team year to year. So why do you stay? I guess I don't understand that.
No, I'm with you. I've always said that one of my biggest complaints about the polls is not just this in the preseason, like you're mentioning the previous national champion or who just had the best year last year, also is during the season. I mean, how many times do we see during the season that guys that lose a game, drop a game, just they don't seem to fall far enough? especially if it's a game to, an opponent that's not as good as you or an opponent that is under 500, whatnot. So that's an even bigger issue that I have is that teams in general don't seem to fall down enough. And I think you should be more fluid when you're ranking teams. All right, couldn't join us yesterday, is going to join us today, usually with us every Monday, but making up that visit from yesterday, Paul Finebaum, and he's with us thanks to our friends at Craneworks.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, rental works, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the Morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Paul, we were just talking about voting in polls and some of the issues that we have with it. I know you saw the coaches poll that came out yesterday, Texas number 1, but what's something that you feel like should be improved on, can be improved on with just how teams are voted on, where teams are placed in polls, either preseason, during the season, or at the end of the season?
I think my overall feeling on this, Cole, is that these polls don't matter anymore, but they once did. So why don't they matter now? Because we have a committee that looks into it and starts meeting in late October. The reason why they used to matter is that they set the template. And once you get in the polls at a certain position, you can't get out. And Cole, you know where I'm going here. You go back to the famous 2004 Auburn team, which started low and got up, I think once they were tied for number 2, but the number 1 and 2 team in the preseason were USC and Oklahoma, and they never left because pollsters are old-fashioned. They don't really watch the games like an analyst like you guys do. And I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to because I really don't care. Most of them have no earthly idea what they're doing, and that would include myself. If I was voting, if you're covering a team, how can you possibly know what's going on the West Coast or the East Coast if you're in the opposite side of the country? And now, I mean, unless you want to stay up all night and go through film.
Who doesn't want to do that except for Cole? So Cole should be he should be the sole pollster, I think, because he's the only person I know that would literally do that. Looking at the poll yesterday, Paul, it's kind of amazing to me how egregious it is. Ohio State, with all their personnel lost, they returned less than 50% of their production from a year ago, and yet they sit there at number 2, ahead of Penn State, who has everybody back, ahead of Clemson, who has everybody back, and ahead of Notre Dame, that has an awful lot of people back, and Georgia, who's got a decent amount back as well. So help me understand how Ohio State is being given this ticket to the party when really they have more answers than there are more questions than answers right now.
I think the biggest reason is August 30th at the Shoe. And pollsters and these are coaches here, so let me be honest. They know even less than the broadcasters because they have less time. I mean, if you're coaching at SMU or Alabama or Southern Cal, you could really care less about what's going on elsewhere other than your next opponent. You might pay attention to some of the teams on your schedule. So Ohio State's in there based on what happened last year, obviously, based on what's about to happen. Pollsters, coaches, or broadcasters tend to gravitate toward matchups. And this game, the second we started thinking about it as we walked out of the Cotton Bowl last year, was going to be a 1 versus 2 game. You're right. Penn State very easily could be number 1. Notre Dame could be 1 or 2. You could argue that Clemson could be, but the biases remain. And I think you start, and I don't know exactly even know where it starts, but I blame everyone, including ESPN and the magazines. It starts setting a template, and you get a coach who walks in and his sports guy says, "Okay, let's fill out the ballot." He goes, "What's everybody else saying?" And that's how it happens.
Paul Finebaum joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline with us every week, thanks to Craneworks. Is it becoming a little bit too much for Texas? Is this team ready to handle the hype, the pressure, the build-up, the noise about what they possibly are going to be this season?
I mean, it's easy to say that, and it's easy to point to all the people lost, especially on the lines. But I think the fact that they have been so good for a couple of years. They've recruited well. They've done well in almost every area. And I think Sarkisian brought some of this on by talking about his roster. So the one thing we all react to it. Everybody gets a little more interested when we see that first poll, and I think we'll be more interested a couple weeks from now whenever the AP poll comes out because it has more credibility. But I think in Texas's case, they just have gotten there by virtue of being the team that's been to the playoffs the last 2 years. Cole, I can talk in circles for the rest of this time, but I know you have other guests. But it's a perception. And yesterday was the first time that Alabama didn't get the benefit of the doubt. That Alabama, and somebody said to me yesterday, where would Alabama be with the exact same roster and Nick Saban as coach?
At worst, one. But
yeah,
what do I know?
Exactly.
The thing that's amazing to me is Clemson has won multiple national championships in the last decade. I know it's been some time since 2018 since they won the last one. But they have everybody back off a playoff run a year ago. They won the ACC a year ago in a down year. And it feels like their best is going to be right there this year, and yet they sit there at 6. How is that justifiable?
Well, a couple of things. It's really their first game last year. I don't think has left a lot of people's mind when they were just ramsacked by Georgia. Losing at home against South Carolina also didn't help. They didn't get as much credit as maybe they deserve for pulling off that win against SMU. And their playoff game against Texas was okay. On a day of multiple blowouts, it was at least interesting. And I think there's also a bias against Dabo Swinney right now. Instead of getting credit, which I know you give him, and I've come around. I was one of those critics of Dabo a couple of years ago, as almost everyone was. He has just shut the noise out and has built this roster back to where it's one of the better ones in college football. So I think you add in all those things and people go, well, I can't put them ahead of Georgia because they lost to Georgia. I can't put them ahead of this team. I can't put them ahead of that team, and that's how they end up where they are.
Paul, I'm interested to ask you going into this season, because you just brought up Dabo and then referenced Clemson. And it used to be we would talk about Nick Saban or Urban Meyer and say, well, that team's always going to have the advantage. How many teams in college football right now would you just place ahead of other teams that you viewed close to them based on coaching?
I think that does factor into it. But to me, and I try to examine myself when I talk about Dabo Swinney because he was so easy to count out. And by the way, we weren't counting him out as a good coach. We weren't counting him out as a good program. We were counting him out as that successor to the Saban dynasty, so to speak, because they did slip. They're back where they were really 8 or 9 years ago. And for a lot of reasons, great defense, but also a difference maker at quarterback.
Paul, we always appreciate the time. Always great stuff. Thanks for hopping on, making up yesterday's visit. We'll catch up again next week.
Thank you, Cole. Enjoyed it.
There you go. Paul Finebaum joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. We'll get to a break, come back with SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee next right here on Jocks.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, and Three-Man Front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.
Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Continue talking coaches poll. If you missed it yesterday, Texas, the number one team for the first time ever in the coaches poll entering a season. Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, Miami round out the top 10. We'll get to the teams that were most frustrating for Greg McElroy in the coaches poll as far as where they landed, as he referenced it as egregious in our first segment here in just a moment. That Alabama heat and humidity, it can be egregious. Don't let it affect your home and family. Keep them comfortable with an affordable train cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand 11 consecutive years, and they're the official cooling partner here at Jocks. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It's hard to stop a train. So we were going to go down that list, GMAC, of these teams on the coaches poll and where they fell. What was the first one that you saw that you said, yeah, no, that's not it?
Ohio State at 2. I think we've already kind of that though. Like we already hit that one, so I feel good about it. Clemson at 6. Next one, it's like what?
Too low, you mean?
And with everything back, don't you agree?
Yeah, but no, I just didn't want people to think you were saying that they were too high at 6.
No, too low at 6. Like way too low. Oregon at 7 to me is about right, but the teams behind them should be in front of them. Like Bama has more known commodities, and LSU has more known commodities than Oregon right now.
Could you make an argument Miami does as well?
I think you could. I think there are some question marks with Miami. New DC,
sure.
A lot of new faces in the secondary, a couple of new things that they're working, a couple wide receivers that they got to iron out. Like I think Miami's really talented. But there are some things that would hold me back from putting them in front of Oregon. But yes, as far as like who contributed last year to a great season, Miami had more guys back off last year's team.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking if you're comparing those two teams and what they have that you've seen, that you know, that you like, it's actually pretty similar when you kind of take a look at those two and see what's out there. So I'm not necessarily looking at, just who I think is going to be the better football team. I mean, Carson Beck's still new. And hadn't played for Shannon Dawson, don't know exactly what he's going to look like. So it'll be interesting to see how that one sort of plays out. I'm with you on all those so far. And I like how you place maybe Alabama, LSU, possibly Miami, even the other two ahead of Oregon. So how do you manage that? How do you handle that? Outside the top 10, Arizona State would be 11, Illinois at 12. I feel like this is the highest I've seen Illinois in a preseason poll. And you and I've talked about them. I like them a smidge more than you do, but I feel like they've usually been 18 to 20-ish in most that I've seen. So I feel like 12, a lot of respect. Am I convinced they're just going to be better than South Carolina, Ole Miss, SMU, Florida? No, I'm not, but I think they're in that category. So I think it's just whatever you sort of look at as you value more, returning starting quarterback, coaching continuity, whatever that is, maybe you push them ahead. So at the bottom, Boise comes in at 25, Texas Tech 24, BYU 23, Iowa State 22, A&M 21, Kansas State 20. So there's no Auburn in the preseason top 25. I know that's one of the first things that people will look at and say, how does that take place? We feel like with what they have on their roster should have been there. But once again, the carryover effect, Greg, a lot of times is not going to make something like that be able to happen.
Yeah, and Auburn, there are still some unknowns, and they're still off of 5 and 7. So I understand why they're not ranked. I would have them in the top 25. I'd have them in the top 20, but I don't know if I'd go as far as like have them up there around the top 10. The most egregious omission is Oklahoma by a mile. And honestly, if you really look at what Oklahoma has back on defense, with what Oklahoma has improved at, and notably improved with real, not 5-star potential, with real production at the college level, there's absolutely no reason why they should be unranked right now. None whatsoever. The other team that I think, if you really look at, kind of dive into the weeds a bit, is Utah. Like, I know Utah had a tough year last year. I know they've had back-to-back years with tremendously bad injury luck. But for them to be outside the top 25 is absurd. And don't get me wrong, I like Kansas State. I like Iowa State. I like Indiana. I like A&M. A&M's way too low. BYU just lost their quarterback. They have a lot of other pieces back, but still I think BYU right now ahead of Utah. To me, I have a hard time justifying. SMU has a lot of new pieces up front on defense. I really like them, but to have them at 16 and to have Utah and Oklahoma unranked, to me, is just a hard thing to kind of measure up. So really think that this top 25, also South Carolina, with everything South Carolina lost, they should not be 13. There's no way. I mean, if you want to make a case from the top 25, I'm fine with that. I got no issue with that whatsoever. They finished the season last year 15 and lost in the bowl game to an Illinois team that's right in front of them. But how is South Carolina 13? Like, I don't understand it. Not with everything that was lost. I just don't get it.
No, and Oklahoma one that sticks out for sure that I was going to get to, because it's been a minute since Oklahoma was not in the preseason top 25, at least from the coaches poll perspective. And if you looked at the voting, Boise 246 points, Oklahoma 221. So I don't know what one vote in the 20s or the teens does as a difference. It doesn't even feel like that's It's super close. There is about a 20-point gap between 24-25 and then 23-24, and then a much larger gap between 23 BYU and number 21 Iowa State. But it gets a little closer than that after you start to inch through. So Oklahoma, Missouri, Louisville, USC, Utah, Baylor, Auburn would be your first teams out as far as teams receiving votes that did not get in. It's tough to know right now. I mean, there's things like this Texas Tech team we talked about, Greg, at 24. With everything they have added, talent-wise, could be a really good team. We hadn't seen any of those guys together. We don't know what they're going to look like. BYU's got some big quarterback concerns now. Iowa State got a lot coming back, but overall, is their roster near as talented as some of these others up there? No, probably not. But that doesn't always make you the best football team. It is intriguing towards the bottom because some of those teams are easy to like, but then they're easy to have concerns with. And some of the teams that were left out, I'm with you on Oklahoma 100%. Not even really going to push back on that. But some of the other teams too, you look at and you wonder, man, Louisville's not there, Missouri's not there. Like you said, Utah's not one of your top 25 teams heading into the season. It feels a little odd.
It does, and honestly, look at teams like I said, and it's really more of a matter of preference. Like, do you like SMU better than Kansas State, Iowa State? Do you like Iowa State better than Kansas State, SMU, BYU? Like, really, if you look at the clump of teams between, say, you really want to go all the way to Ole Miss, 15 and 40. Like, I think those teams are all very interchangeable. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you're a little higher on Missouri than most, but I bet you can find 10 people that are a little bit more down on Missouri. Maybe you really like USC. I really like USC this year, but I bet you there's a handful of people that are down on SC. Like, I'd have SC as a top 11, 12 team, and yet here they are in the coaches poll at 29. Like, I think that collection of teams from say 15 through 35 this year is very, very debatable because there's so many pieces that have new pieces, and then some have gone to the portal and have added new guys, and I just think it's hard to kind of put those teams in place. But what I find most fascinating about the whole deal is that if you're going to go off of what you did last year, and we always punch holes in this, it's like I feel like the committee uses different criteria to put teams in different places. Clearly, South Carolina's ranked 13th based off last year. Clearly, Ohio State's ranked second based off last year. Well, how is it that a team that went 8-5 in Florida is ranked ahead of a team that went 11-2 in Indiana, or 12 and what was 11-3 in SMU? How is it if we're ranking off last year, and that's a big reason why you're justifying it? Why are teams that had great years last year ranked behind teams that did not have great years last year, like Michigan and Florida? That's what I'm having a hard time with.
That's totally fair. 1999 was the last time that Oklahoma was not ranked in a preseason coaches poll. So it has been a minute that has taken place. Been a minute since Bromberg's been in business too, Greg. Tell our listeners why they're so great.
Well, they're fantastic, and been using Bromberg's for a long time. It's the only place I've shopped since we've been back, and it's been tremendous. The experience you have when you walk in the door at their Mountain Brook Village store or at their store at the Summit. The selection's incredible. The salespeople are incredible. You're going to be very, very pleased with the experience you have when you go and shop at Bromberg's. And got some pretty big news for those that like to visit the Mountain Brook store. It's undergoing a full renovation, which is going to be a redesign that kind of reflects Bromberg's long-standing commitment to quality service and the community. This transformation will really enhance the Bromberg experience, which I didn't even know it could be enhanced. It's such a good experience. But they will be open throughout the renovation. So you can continue to go in, shop, check out their jewelry, check out their watches, watch repair services, you name it. I've always trusted Bromberg's for life's meaningful moments, and I can't wait to see what's next. So go and check them out in Mountain Brook Village, and at the Summit, it's Bromberg's.
All right, when we come back, SMU head football coach Rhett Lashlee joins the show live after this on Jocks.
The capital of the sports talk nation. This is Jocks 94.5 and JocksFM.com. Birmingham.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 7:30, as we continue rolling along right here on Jocks. Listen online, JocksFM.com. Apps in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Always listen on the go. That'll also direct you to YouTube where you can watch the show live each and every day. SMU head football coach Rhett Lashlee joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline, help preview his season. What did last year do for you guys when you sit there in that brand new facility and you look at your surroundings and just maybe the attention you get, how you recruit, what you're able to do through recruiting, how your team feels, the energy, just anything? How different is what you're doing right now compared to a year ago based on the season you guys were able to put together?
Morning, guys. Always good to be with you. Yeah, I mean, I think it did a couple things. I think one, internally, it validated that we belong. There's a lot of work to be done to stay in the belonging category, but when you take a transition and that our program went through, there's still some maybe doubt until you've done it. And I think you got to accomplish confidence, and I think what we were able to do validated that our program can belong back on the national stage where we felt like it should. But I think also internally, it just gave our returning players, our staff, our administration, everybody, our fans, confidence that we do belong. Now, on one hand, we have, I think, as of yesterday on the coaches poll, we have the highest preseason ranking we've had since 1985. So, it shows that we've at least established ourselves back in the conversation. At the same time, 1 year doesn't prove anything, and so I think we're still very motivated internally that we have a lot to prove still.
Well, it's obviously proof of concept, and you've done a great job, and obviously have tremendous support amongst the boosters there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and throughout the country that want to see SMU back. But it looks like now this year could be more challenging because now the target is on your chest to a certain extent. How differently has the team prepared this year, knowing that they'll be kind of more in the hunted role as opposed to the hunter?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's obviously kind of just part of the process of us building the program where we want it to be. And, back-to-back 11-win seasons, what we were able to do last year got everyone's attention. So to your point, we're not sneaking up on anybody, and no one's going to take us for granted. Last year we were 7th in the preseason poll. This year we're 3rd. So, all that stuff's great because it just proves that we've done some good things. But at the same time, I think our guys are motivated. Again, like I said, we weren't picked to get back to Charlotte. Nobody's picking us to go to the college football playoff. I think there's still a little bit of, just like we felt last year, we really had to prove we belong. I think now we have to prove that, we have the ability to have sustained success. And obviously, Greg, you were a part of a lot of that run at Alabama. That's what's so impressive about what Coach Saban and y'all were able to do. It wasn't just that you won a few national titles or that you had a few good years. It was the incredible ability to sustain that success year in and year out. And I've said success is really hard. Sustained success is harder. And that's the part of our kind of programs development we're in right now is how do we prove that we can year in, year out be a contender. And so we got a chance to prove that we're capable of that this year.
Rhett Lashlee, SMU head coach, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Where is your team continuity right now? And individually, I know it can be different at different positions. You add some more real talent through the portal, similar to a year ago, but you're able to make a playoff run. How can you and your coaches sort of fast forward this? How can you find a way to force that continuity a little bit faster than you normally might need? Where is that aspect of your football team today?
Yeah, we've had 5 practices. We're going to have 6 today. I think it's in a good place. Every year you're building a brand new team, so no team's like the last. And so that's what's kind of exciting and fun about fall camp is you're building this year's culture, identity, continuity, as you're saying. I think offensively there's a lot of consistency because Kevin Jennings returns. And so you have a returning quarterback. We lost 2 really good players. We lost Bashard Smith. We lost Roderick Daniels. We lost a couple other guys, Keyshawn Smith's in the NFL and so on and so forth. But we have a lot back on offense, and a lot of our new faces on offense are really quality high school recruits we brought in. We sprinkled in a transfer or 2 up front to help us. But most of our guys are either returning or young guys. So we're in a good place there. On defense is where we lost a lot. And so, there's been a bunch of transfer D tackles and a few defensive ends and linebacker pieces that, that's where we have to try to make sure that we can establish that kind of standard on defense that we've had, that culture on defense, that has really helped us the last 2 years. I mean, that's been the difference for us. It's what Scott Simons has done and that staff on that side of the ball. We played championship level defense the last 2 years, and that's why we've been able to win. And so I think that's probably where we've got the most growth that has to occur over this month. But so far, this whole team has proven that they're kind of a no-nonsense group, and they're all about accountability. I mean, they hold themselves accountable. They've done it all summer. They've done it in fall camp. We haven't faced a lot of adversity yet, so that'll be the last test. But right now, I kind of like where our guys are.
Understandably. And last year, you guys are so good up front defensively. I know there's some new pieces there, but with the additions in the portal, you got to feel like it's been pretty good. I am curious about Kevin Jennings' growth and development because I feel like last year was kind of amazing to watch him. He always made plays. That was undeniable. But even like fundamentally, he could clean so much up and be such a better player. Like to see what he did and to see what he might be capable of if he were to clean a couple things up, a la not dropping too deep in the pocket, 2 hands on the ball when scrambling, what have you. I mean, easy things to fix. So how much progress have you seen from him this season, this offseason, to know that he can take that next step as a player this year?
Man, Kevin's in a great place. He's been really hungry to just become a complete quarterback. I think, De'Aaron King's been great for him this offseason. When you start physically, he's added 10 to 12 pounds, which I think will really help him, as just week in, week out at this level, hold up. And even he's a little faster and stronger because of that. So he's dedicated himself physically. I think mentally he kind of went into this deal like, look, I want to be the offensive coordinator on the field. Like, I don't want to just know my job. I want to know the whole thing at a higher level. And so he really studied that in the spring and the summer. And then to your point, like whether it's fundamentally with his drops, I mean, that just comes with now he's going to be his first year as the full-time starter. He's had a full offseason knowing he was the starter for the first time, value in the football. 2 games get a lot of attention because we turned it over at an alarming rate, one being our last game. But in 11 starts, 9 of them he was pretty good. You know what I mean? And so I think he's got to go out and just prove that he can continue to be this aggressive playmaking style QB as you saw in the second half of that Clemson game. At the same time, value the football. And then to your point, fundamentally, there's just a lot of little areas that maybe the average person might not notice that if he cleans up, it'll just help him be a more consistent QB. And he's really motivated. 5 practices in so far. He looks like a different guy in a good way, and he was pretty darn good last year. So, we're excited about him getting out there and showing the growth he's had.
Rhett, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks for hanging out with us, previewing your football team this upcoming season. I know it's a busy time, but we enjoyed it.
Man, I appreciate it. Y'all didn't ask me any questions about SEC history. I'm kind of shocked.
I think there were some folks that wanted us to, but hey, I feel like you said what you
If you want to expound, we'll leave the floor open for you, my friend. If you want to go, we'll go.
On anything. Hey, no shots were taken. I just stated an obvious fact. I don't know. If people don't like it, I don't know what they want me to do about it. So, hey, I appreciate you guys. Y'all are the best. Greg, hopefully next year we get to play a little golf again, and maybe I can come out on the right side of it this time.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Hopefully we won't be chipping off some bluestone to settle the end of it. So maybe we'll have a real shootout next year. It'll be fun, buddy. It's good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
SMU head football coach Rhett Lashlee joining us there on the Higginbotham Hotline. And, I mean, more talent coming in. Jeffrey Imba's a name that a lot of people remember. Played at Auburn D tackle, played at Purdue, has a ton of talent, boatload of talent. That could be somebody that you look at and say, all right, it's going to help that D-line. Trey Wilson coming in from Baylor. You also have Ja'Kai Lane coming in from Missouri. They've gone and gotten more talent up front, G-Mac, and I think that's the area that a lot of people didn't realize how good they were last year was on that defensive line. The ability to have a couple players that could move around, ability to hurt you off the edge, big enough to sort of hold up, not just get taken advantage of on the interior of that defensive line, and going to try to replenish that and be that again this year.
Well, what was amazing is I think even as someone that watched them and knowing and talking to Rhett before the season and talking about what they were trying to do, their full attention was on trying to be good along the offensive and defensive lines. That was what was concerning because they knew that was the biggest jump from where they were in the American to where they were going in the AAC. They had to be buttoned up along the offensive and defensive lines. So to know that they went from that being a question mark in the preseason to being pretty dang star-studded by season's end is pretty dang remarkable with their talent assessment and an assessment of how they were going to try to match up week to week. And they got a bunch of guys from Miami, so they had ACC transfers, which were helpful, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Scott Simmons did an amazing job. And I do think that this SMU team, while they do have some things that they need to replace, there's no denying that, especially along the defensive line. And look, people are going to be gunning for them for sure. I'm sure they spent an entire offseason focusing on them, making sure that they know how to defend what Rhett does offensively. And they're going to be a heavy focus point for a lot of teams, but they're going to be good again. It's just, will they be good enough to get to, say, 10-2, 9-3, to where they're back in the playoff mix and back in the conversation?
I don't think there's any doubt. They'll look for some added value there through the transfer portal, and we're going to add some value here on Jocks. I'll introduce you to our friend and wealth advisor, Tad Hill, your trusted retirement planning partner. Tad is a co-host of the Retire with Freedom and radio TV shows in Birmingham and Huntsville, also designated by Forbes as the #1 financial securities professional in the state of Alabama, multiple years running. Tad, what do you have for us today?
Okay, today is a topic that we've discussed before, but it's a pretty constant issue, and that is market volatility. And definitely the markets have been topsy-turvy for months in a row now. And if you're already retired or you're within 5 years of it, there's a thing called sequence of returns risk. And I can't go through all the math here. I can do that in our course or in a visit. But the bottom line is, if you get poor returns early in your retirement, then you are at a much higher risk of running out of money. And our Retire with Freedom process is designed to help you build a plan to insulate you from that. We can help you. I would really encourage you to come to one of our courses or come in for a visit. And the way to do that is to text JOCKS at 205-988-0006. That's 205-988-0006. Text JOCKS, 205-988-0006.
This is a paid placement. Investment advisory services are made available through AE Wealth Management. For more information about Forbes rankings, visit Forbes.com.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, three-man front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:45 Tuesday, August 5th, right here on Jocks. We were rolling through the coaches poll before we visit with Rhett Lashlee, but want to spend a little bit more time on that team, GMAC. The beginning of the schedule, interesting. East Texas A&M, but then they get Baylor. But that's Baylor after they play Auburn on a Friday night, depending on how that game goes. Could have some determination on what they're going to look like in week 2 against SMU. At Missouri State, at TCU. Then you get a week off before you play Syracuse. Stanford, at Clemson, at Wake, back-to-back weeks. Miami, at Boston College, Louisville, at Cal. I look at that schedule and say, whoa. I know the beginning of it and the non-con, not as difficult as some people might want when you see East Texas A&M and Missouri State. However, you're at BC late. You're at Clemson and Wake in back-to-back weeks. That also makes 3 road games in 4 weeks with Miami at home sandwiched in between those. We know Clemson a national title contender. I think TCU is going to be a better team than people believe right now. Syracuse, obviously, a team that's going to add Steve Angeli at quarterback. They're going to be tough. It's just Louisville's the team that we like a lot. I mean, it's a tougher schedule than I think probably SMU is going to get credit for playing.
Way tougher. And who's dogging their non-con? They played 10 Power 5s, and we both are fans of Baylor and TCU. I think you can make a strong argument that both belong in the preseason top 25. Like who would dog the non-con? If you want to dog,
you know what people do though? They see those two teams and they say, "Why are you playing teams that low? Like why add those two teams to the schedule?" That's not me, but I'm just there are people that are going to be there.
Tango. I get that. You're right, but it takes 2 to tango. Like how many teams are wanting to play SMU? First of all, TCU is a rivalry game, so that game's played every year. How many teams answer me this? Is you think it's in the best interest of Texas to invite SMU to come play at their house, or do a home and home with Oklahoma, or to go and play, I don't know, who's another really good team this year? You think SC's fired up about playing SMU right now? You think those are teams that want to play SMU? No, heck no, because they're same thing, other side of the coin. How many teams are getting credit for beating SMU right now? But there's a lot of risk to playing SMU. So I think that's a ridiculous take if people are dogging the non-con, because Baylor's good, TCU's good. I also think their ACC schedule is much more challenging this year. Last year, you avoided Clemson in the regular season. You avoided Miami in the regular season. And I believe they did beat Louisville at Louisville. I think Louisville has a chance to be as good. I think Miami is going to be better in some areas. And I think Clemson's going to be better in some areas. So you now get 3 of the top 4 ACC teams that are now on your schedule, when last year you were able to avoid all but one of those aforementioned teams.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think it's a really tough schedule. Back-to-back road games at Missouri State, which is a weird one, and then TCU. And you get a week off, and then, like I said, later in October into November, 3 road games in 4 weeks, and you finish at Cal, which is always just a weird trip, and one that a lot of teams don't go out there and look dominant against that team, specifically if it ends up being a later game. But you like where they've reloaded on the defensive line. You love the fact that Kevin Jennings coming back, not only your leading passer returning, but your leading rusher returning on the football team as well. So some of the pieces that are going to be there are you get an Addison Nichols, who was at Arkansas last year, is going to start for you at center most likely. You've added pieces in spots that they've lost that I feel like aren't going to be big drop-offs and maybe could end up being better in certain places. But outside of that schedule, what's a concern for you with this group? What do you feel like they may not have enough of that they had a year ago that doesn't allow them to match what they did last year?
I don't think they're going to be as good along the defensive line. That's my biggest problem. I think they're really going to miss Brashard Smith, their running back, last year. Those are the 2 biggest question marks. Brashard Smith was an absolute dude at running back, converted slot receiver, was just a great football player. And I don't know who that guy's going to be this year. It's going to put a little bit more of an onus on the quarterback, Kevin Jennings, who I like a lot. I think he's a playmaker, but I also have concerns about the down in, down out situational awareness. That was a problem last year. And I mean more, not situational like third down red zone. I'm talking more like he's 12 yards deep in the pocket on a 5-step drop. Whereas he should be at no deeper than 9 ever in the pocket. So he just puts his tackles in a tough spot from time to time. And I think that, and then he occasionally has one hand on the football. Like, I think there's just some things he can clean up. If he cleans those things up, he's going to be in great shape. But those were huge, glaring spots last year that I felt like teams could take advantage of. So, Brashard Smith and defensive line, where are you at with SMU?
No, I don't think it's going to be as good as a year ago. Like you said, they had some versatility up front with the ability to move inside, outside. You also had some twitch and athleticism, but I like Jeffrey Imba. I've been hearing about him since he was at Auburn and did some good things at Purdue last year. He gives you a bigger body inside that has a little bit of that twitch. So I don't think it's going to be what it was off the edge last season, but I think it can be somewhat close and maybe even better in some other spots where you don't have to lean on them as much. They don't have to make certain plays, be as disruptive as they were a season ago. Either way, now, like you asked Rhett Lashlee, that expectation is going to be there. It's not going to be one where they're kind of battling back, because nobody really – I mean, what week do you feel like it was that they started picking up real momentum? Because I feel like it was pretty late in the season where a lot of people finally started getting on board with SMU and what they were and what they were sort of becoming. And – I mean, I guess when you looked at the earlier loss to BYU, that's why some people kind of threw in the towel and said, not a team that we really need to spend time talking about. But I did feel like sort of the conference championship race and how it was going to go with the conference championship game and maybe getting in, not being in, sort of helped SMU a little bit and awaken some people to what they were. But are you with me that it was pretty late before a lot of people really started getting on board with this team?
Well, I think when they absolutely smashed Florida State, that woke people up a little bit. But you're right. I do think it took people a little too long to probably get fully on board. I think when they beat Pitt impressively, that woke people up. But it was the week before against Duke when they won despite a -6 turnover margin. People were like, what the heck just happened? But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think most people, I would imagine listening to our show, I think they're probably pretty aware. But nationally, let's say you're an SEC fan and you're just casually watching the SEC, probably not super dialed in on SMU. You probably thought at some point they'd drop one and they wouldn't make the playoffs, so you weren't paying attention. And then sure enough, They win all the way through, finish 11-2, and find their way into the postseason and ultimately lose to Penn State. But that was a really good Penn State team. So not their best showing in that game, not their best showing in the first half of the Clemson game, but I think they earned a lot of people's respect last year. People will be paying a lot closer attention this year as a result.
Yeah, I would agree there. You brought up Penn State again, and you brought them up with Paul when we referenced the coaches poll earlier in the show. Do you think the only holdup for people with Penn State is just James Franklin's history and maybe even more so recent history? And that almost, I mean, is that doing that team a disservice by saying, well, you can't hold them out of the rankings or push them down in the rankings because of what other teams that wear that uniform have been in the past, because that's not really this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely low-hanging fruit, but it's also a little bit part of the story. I mean, how much do you trust a James Franklin coach team? I mean, if we're about risk avoidance, can you really put all of your eggs into the Penn State basket? I mean, just being real, I mean, I understand why there's some doubt there. I think it's ridiculous because this year's team is going to be really well equipped to make a run. But I can understand why people are hesitant. That makes sense. People have been burned before. I've been burned multiple times by them. I've picked them to beat Ohio State 3 times in the last 10 years, and they have 0 wins. So I understand why people feel that way. But at the same time, man, if you look at what's known commodities, things that you know, they have more than most this season. The one team that might have a slightly better roster would be Clemson, and that's depending on the eye of the beholder.
I want to discuss another team in the coaches poll that's ranked pretty high, and that's Ohio State at 2. You and I have been kind of tooting this horn all off season. I don't understand all of the love I get at Jeremiah Smith, probably best player in college football. Caleb Downs, one of the best. That's incredible to have. The wide receiver core, there aren't many that you could even make an argument that are better. But the offensive line is going to have a lot of new pieces. We don't know much about the quarterback situation, not even the starter per se, but the situation in general. Running back's going to be new. Yes, they add Bo Jackson, but I don't think that that's necessarily going to be enough. I do like C.J. Johnson from West Virginia, which could help. The defensive line, not near as many of the cast of characters that we had seen at least be proven in small spots last year. Where should we be on Ohio State right now, in your opinion?
See it to believe it mode. Now, you look at the talent, you look at the roster. We're ranking them at number 2 based on recruiting rankings, which, by the way, are a pretty decent indicator of future success. But we also are going with a freshman quarterback. We also are going with a defense that lost a ton of production. Now, they're pieces that are known commodities, as good as there is in college football. Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles. Like, if you look at what's back, they have ridiculous top-end talent, but there are also a lot of pieces that are not back that really helped contribute to the national championship run last year.
Absolutely. All right, so there you have it with the coaches poll. A couple of teams that were left out: Auburn, Missouri, Oklahoma. A couple of teams maybe ranked a little bit too high, a little bit too low for our liking. We take a camp tour next. We told you 8 o'clock every day, going to kind of go around the SEC, what's happening at different camps. Gerard Hamilton going to join us as well to discuss Missouri's first scrimmage yesterday, all next on Jocks.
This is McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.